Okay, ready to dive into the world of veneer slicing. We're talking those thin sheets of wood that elevate furniture, instruments, you name it all, in prep for your big interview.
It's a fascinating blend of technical skill and artistry, turning raw lumber into these beautiful veneers.
And we're here to give you the edge to really impress those hiring managers. We've got some common interview questions lined up, strategies to make your answers pop, and even how RoleCatcher's AI can give you that extra edge.
Think of this deep dive as your masterclass in acing that Veneer Slicer Operator interview.
Perfect way to put it. So let's jump right in with a question that might seem simple, but it's so crucial to get right. What inspired you to become a veneer slicer operator? Now, I know it can be tempting to give a generic answer, but how can a candidate really make this their own?
It's all about showcasing that genuine enthusiasm. Instead of just saying, I love working with wood, you've got to dig a little deeper. Maybe you're fascinated by how different wood species react to the slicing process. Or maybe you're driven by the challenge of mastering a specific type of lathe.
So really revealing that personal spark that drew you to this particular craft.
Absolutely. And be prepared for those follow-up questions. They might ask about your previous experience with woodworking, the types of wood you're most drawn to, or even specific projects that have inspired you.
And that's where RoleCatcher's AI can really come in handy, right? It analyzes the job description, the company's background, to help tailor those answers.
Precisely. It can pinpoint those keywords related to specific wood species they use, the types of veneer slicing machines they have, or any unique techniques they specialize in.
Oh, that's like having a personalized cheat sheet for your interview.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of preparation, let's move on to another common question. What are the essential skills for operating a veneer slicer effectively?
Beyond just knowing how to turn the machine on, of course.
Precisely. While technical skills are a given, don't underestimate those soft skills. Attention to detail. Remember, you're working with thin, delicate sheets of wood, and even the slightest inconsistency can impact the final product.
So how could a candidate weave those skills into their answer without just listing them off?
Instead of saying, I'm detail-oriented, illustrate it with a real-world example. In my previous role, I was responsible for calibrating the veneer slicer to ensure consistent thickness. I learned that even a minor miscalculation could affect the quality of the entire batch, so precision became second nature to me.
Oh, I like that. It's about showing, not just telling. Now, safety is always a top priority, especially when you're working with machinery. How do you recommend candidates address the question? How do you ensure the safety of yourself and others while operating the veneer slicer?
This is where they can really demonstrate their commitment to a safe working environment. It's not just about stating the obvious, like wearing safety glasses. It's about showcasing a deeper understanding of protocols.
So what kind of details would impress a hiring manager?
Mentioning specific procedures, like lock out a cowd for machine maintenance, keeping hands clear of blades, that's a good start. But take it a step further. Talk about the importance of a clean work area to prevent trips, or how you'd proactively communicate potential hazards to your colleagues.
So demonstrating that proactive, safety-conscious mindset.
Exactly. And if they've had any specialized safety training, OSHA certifications, for example, this is the perfect place to highlight those. It shows dedication.
Makes sense. Okay, so it sounds like they should treat this question as a real opportunity to highlight their knowledge and experience, even if it's not directly related to just operating the machine itself.
Absolutely. Now, let's shift gears a bit to a question that often trips people up. Can you describe a challenging situation you faced while operating a veneer slicer and how you resolved it? This one can be tricky, especially for those newer to the field.
Yeah, it does sound like they're looking for a good story. What if someone doesn't have a ton of on-the-job experience to draw from?
That's where a hypothetical situation can be just as effective. They could say, while I haven't encountered this specific problem in a real-world setting yet, I can imagine that a sudden change in wood grain direction during slicing, that could pose a challenge.
So they're demonstrating their knowledge of potential issues even without having years of experience to back it up.
Precisely. They could then elaborate on how they'd approach the problem, such as consulting the machine's manual, adjusting the blade angle incrementally, or maybe seeking guidance from a more experienced operator. It's all about showcasing those problem-solving skills, that ability to think on their feet.
And RoleCatcher can help them practice these answers beforehand, right? Almost like a mock interview with an AI coach.
Exactly. The AI analyzes your responses, provides feedback on everything from your pacing and clarity to even your body language.
That's amazing. So you're walking into that interview feeling much more confident and prepared?
Speaking of confidence, let's tackle a question that often makes people stumble. Can you explain your experience with veneer slicing machinery other than the one used in our facility?
Now, what if they've only ever worked with one type of machine? Should they just admit they lack experience?
Not at all. It's all about highlighting those transferable skills. Even if they haven't worked on that specific model, they can discuss the fundamental principles of veneer slicing that apply across different machines.
So instead of focusing on the specific brand or model, they should emphasize their understanding of blade adjustments, wood grain analysis, those troubleshooting techniques.
Exactly. They could say something like, while my experience is primarily with rotary lathes, I'm confident that my understanding of veneer slicing fundamentals would allow me to quickly adapt to different types of machinery.
It shows they're eager to learn and expand their skill set.
Precisely. And this is where RoleCatcher's Career Guide can be incredibly helpful. It provides insights into various veneer slicing techniques and the specific machines used for each, giving those candidates a broader perspective.
So even if their hands-on experience is limited, they can still demonstrate a comprehensive understanding of the industry. That's a game changer.
It really is. Now let's move on to another question that often throws people off. How do you stay updated with advancements in veneer slicing technology? It might seem like a niche field, but technology is always evolving.
It's easy to draw a blank on that one, especially if you're so focused on the day-to-day of the job.
The key here is to showcase that commitment to continuous learning. Even if they haven't attended a fancy industry conference lately, they can talk about their go-to resources for staying informed.
Like trade publications, online forums, maybe even following industry leaders on social media.
Exactly. And if they want to go the extra mile, they can mention a specific innovation that has caught their eye, laser-guided slicing or computer-controlled drying systems.
It shows they're not just keeping up, they're actively seeking out new knowledge.
Precisely. And this is where RoleCatcher's personalized recommendations come in handy. Based on the specific job description, it might suggest relevant industry publications or even online courses that could boost their credibility even further.
It's like having a personalized career development plan right at your fingertips. Now, before we move on to more of these insightful questions, let's take a quick pause. We'll be right back with more tips and strategies to help you ace that Veneer Slicer Operator interview. And we're back with more insider tips to help you conquer that Veneer Slicer Operator interview. Let's talk about a question that can really make you shine. How do you ensure the quality of the veneer produced meets company standards?
This is a fantastic opportunity to showcase your understanding that quality is paramount in this field. Go beyond just saying, I'd follow the procedures. Talk about your process.
What kind of details would really impress in this scenario?
Imagine the candidate saying, before I even start slicing, I always visually inspect the lumber for knots or imperfections that could affect the veneer quality. It demonstrates a proactive approach.
Oh, it shows they're not just mindlessly feeding wood into the machine. They're thinking critically about the process from start to finish.
Exactly. They can also discuss specific techniques like using a micrometer to check veneer thickness regularly or knowing the telltale signs of a dull blade that needs replacing.
So it's about highlighting that blend of technical knowledge and hands-on experience. And this is another area where RoleCatcher can provide that personalized edge, right?
Absolutely. By analyzing the company's website and even those online reviews, RoleCatcher's AI might uncover details about their specific quality control processes or any awards they've received for product excellence.
Wow, it's like having a behind-the-scenes look at what they value most, allowing you to tailor your answers accordingly.
Precisely. And speaking of tailoring your answers, let's move on to a question that often causes candidates to stumble. How do you manage your time to ensure production goals are met?
Time management. It's crucial in any role, but especially in a fast-paced production environment.
It's not just about working quickly, it's about working smart. Candidates should emphasize their ability to prioritize tasks, perhaps using a system like first in, first out for processing orders.
So demonstrating that they can handle multiple demands without sacrificing quality or efficiency.
Exactly. They could also mention techniques like batching similar tasks together to minimize setup time or using a timer to track their progress on larger orders.
It shows they're organized, strategic, and results-oriented. And I imagine RoleCatcher could provide some helpful insights here too, especially when it comes to company-specific software or systems.
You're right. RoleCatcher can identify keywords in the job description related to production tracking software or methodologies the company might use, like lean manufacturing or Six Sigma.
So instead of just talking about time management in a general sense, They can tailor their answers to align with the company's specific approach. Now, let's switch gears to a question that can be a bit more philosophical. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
This is a classic interview question that's often more about gauging your ambition and career goals than receiving a literal 5-year plan.
So it's not necessarily about having a rigid timeline, but rather showcasing your drive and vision.
Exactly. Candidates should talk about their aspirations, whether it's mastering a specific veneer slicing technique, moving into a supervisory role, or even starting their own woodworking business one day.
It's about connecting their personal goals with the opportunities the company offers. For example, if they're known for their in-house training programs, a candidate could express their desire to eventually train new hires.
That's a great example. It shows they're not just looking for a job, they're looking to build a career. And RoleCatcher can be a valuable resource here too. Its Career Path Explorer tool can highlight potential growth trajectories within the veneer slicing field.
So even if a candidate hasn't mapped out every step of their career, they can still demonstrate an understanding of the possibilities and their eagerness to advance within the company.
Precisely. Now, let's move on to a question that can be a bit unnerving. What are your salary expectations for this role? It's the one we all dread a little, but it's important to be prepared.
What's the best way to approach this question without underselling yourself or pricing yourself out of the running?
Research is key. Before the interview, candidates should research salary ranges for veneer slicer operators in their geographical area with similar experience levels. Websites like Glassdoor or Salary.com can be incredibly helpful for this.
So it's about striking that balance between knowing your worth and being realistic about the market rate.
Exactly. And instead of giving a specific number, it's often wise to provide a salary range. It shows you're flexible and open to negotiation.
It also demonstrates that you're more interested in finding the right fit than getting hung up on a specific dollar amount.
Precisely. And this is another area where RoleCatcher can provide valuable data-driven insights. Its salary predictor tool takes into account factors like location, experience level, and even the company's size and financial health to provide a realistic salary range.
So candidates can walk into that salary negotiation feeling informed and confident. Now let's shift gears to a question that's less about your technical skills and more about your interpersonal skills. Can you tell us about a time you had to work as part of a team to achieve a common goal? This question is all about showcasing your ability to collaborate effectively with others. It's important to have a compelling story ready to go.
So what kind of story would really resonate with a hiring manager for a veneer slicer operator role?
It doesn't necessarily have to be directly related to veneer slicing. The key is to highlight the skills that are transferable to a team environment, like communication, problem solving, and adaptability.
For example, they could talk about a time they had to work with a team to meet a tight deadline on a complex project, even if it was in a completely different industry. Exactly. The key is to focus on the actions they took and the positive outcomes they helped achieve through teamwork. Did they take the initiative to delegate tasks effectively? Did they offer support to a struggling team member? Did they find a creative solution to a problem that was hindering the team's progress?
It's all about highlighting those collaborative skills that are essential in any workplace. And I imagine RoleCatcher could be helpful in identifying specific teamwork scenarios that might resonate with a particular company culture.
You're right. RoleCatcher analyzes company reviews and social media profiles to get a sense of their work environment and values.
So if a company prides itself on its collaborative and supportive culture, a candidate could tailor their story to emphasize those specific qualities.
Exactly. It shows they've done their homework and they're genuinely interested in fitting into the company culture.
Now, let's talk about a question that's often asked towards the end of an interview, and it's one that many candidates stumble on. Do you have any questions for us? It might seem like the interview is winding down, but it's actually a prime opportunity to make a lasting impression.
You're absolutely right. It's a chance to demonstrate your genuine interest in the role, the company, and the opportunity to contribute.
So what kind of questions should candidates ask to leave that positive, lasting impression?
Avoid questions that can be easily answered with a quick Google search, like basic information about the company's history or product line. Instead, focus on questions that demonstrate your knowledge of the company and your enthusiasm for the role.
So instead of asking, what does your company do? They could ask something like, I read about your company's recent expansion into sustainable veneer sourcing. Can you tell me more about that initiative and how this role contributes to those efforts?
Now, that's a fantastic example. It shows you've done your research, you're interested in the company's future, and you're eager to understand how you can contribute to their success.
It also demonstrates a level of initiative and forward thinking that's sure to impress any hiring manager. And RoleCatcher can be a valuable asset here as well.
Right, absolutely. RoleCatcher's AI can analyze the company's news articles, blog posts, even their competitors' information to generate tailored questions that are relevant, insightful, and demonstrate a deep understanding of the industry.
It's like having a secret weapon to impress the hiring manager with your thought-provoking inquiries. But what if, after all those insightful questions from the interviewer, your mind goes blank and you can't think of a single thing to ask? What should a candidate do in that situation?
Don't panic. It happens to the best of us. It's perfectly acceptable to pause for a moment to gather your thoughts. You could say something like, "Those were all great questions. Let me think for a moment about what else I'd like to know."
That buys you a little time to either recall those brilliant questions you prepared beforehand, or maybe to formulate a new one based on the conversation you've just had.
Exactly. And if after a brief pause you're still drawing a blank, you can always fall back on a more general question that shows your enthusiasm for the role or the company culture. For instance, you could ask about the company's approach to professional development or their mentorship programs for new employees.
Those are excellent options that demonstrate your interest in growing with the company. And remember, it's always better to have a few thoughtful questions prepared beforehand than to draw a complete blank and miss out on this valuable opportunity to make a lasting impression.
Absolutely. Now let's move on to some additional tips and insights from RoleCatcher's Career Guide for Veneer Slicer Operators. This guide is packed with valuable information that can help you stand out from the competition.
Okay, let's dive into those career insights. So we're back and ready to explore RoleCatcher's Career Guide for Veneer Slicer Operators. What kind of insider knowledge can we dig out of this?
Well, one thing it really highlights is the potential for career growth in this field, which I think is exciting. You're not just stuck operating the machine forever. With experience, you could move into a supervisory role, maybe become a trainer, or transition to quality control.
So there are real opportunities to specialize and advance within this field.
Absolutely. And speaking of specialization, the career guide also delves into all those really interesting, nuanced veneer slicing techniques. They have detailed guides on rotary lathes, slicing machines, half-round lathes, you name it, they've got it covered. It's a gold mine of information for anyone serious about this career.
Sounds incredibly comprehensive.
Yeah.
But what about those just starting out? Does it offer advice for actually getting that hands-on experience?
It does. RoleCatcher really emphasizes the value of internships, maybe even apprenticeship programs, to kind of get your foot in the door and build a really solid foundation.
So even if you haven't got years of experience yet, there are still very tangible steps you can take to gain those practical skills and impress those hiring managers.
Right. And it's important to remember that learning never truly stops in this field. The career guide stresses continuous development, whether it's through industry workshops, keeping up with those trade publications, or even just connecting with other professionals online.
Oh, I love that. Always stay curious. Always keep honing your craft. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive into the world of veneer slicing and interview prep, of course, is there any final piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with as they gear up for their big interview?
Beyond all the technical skills, the meticulous preparation, there's one quality that really shines through in an interview: enthusiasm.
I love that. Let your passion for woodworking, for the artistry of veneer slicing, let it really shine through.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, hiring managers aren't just looking for someone who can operate a machine. They're looking for someone who is passionate about the work, who's eager to learn, and excited to contribute to the team. So showcase that genuine interest, ask those insightful questions, and don't be afraid to let your personality shine through.
And remember, everyone, preparation is key. RoleCatcher provides those incredible tools and resources you need to put your best foot forward, from crafting that perfect resume to acing those interview questions. So be sure to check them out.
They really do. So leverage those insights, practice those answers, and walk into that interview feeling confident and prepared.
And with a little preparation and a whole lot of passion, we're confident you'll be well on your way to landing that dream job. That's a wrap for today's deep dive into the world of veneer slicer operators. We hope you found these insights helpful and feel empowered to tackle that interview with confidence. Good luck and happy slicing.